Yep. There we go. Okay, everybody. Um, we I don't know. This today's class is how do we understand the prophets in the context of history? And that's a big topic. So we'll see if we can get through it here. So excuse me. Looks like it's getting a little hung. Okay. This is a little bit of review. Last week, we talked about how the reformers identified the Roman Catholic papacy as the little horn and the beast from the sea of Revelation 13. The Pope wasn't happy about that. In response, he held a conclave and got his Jesuits. He actually formed the Jesuits to lead the Counter-Reformation to bring the rebellious Protestant churches back into the mother church. And so to do that, he had them create some narratives, and we have futurism and preterism we just talked about last week. Over several hundred years, the futurism eschatology has grown to include dispensationalism and to be the dominant narrative of end time events in the world today. The lie of futurist dispensational theology has been incorporated into the DNA of the modern church. And it will lead to the many people to miss the actual prophetic signs of the end times as described by Jesus and the prophets. So we're going to talk about what are the signs, and we're going to talk about what I believe are the real signs instead of the signs that we talked about last week. But I'm going to start with a brief history of Satan's attacks on God's people. It's important because up until about the fourth century AD, Satan's attacks were focused as an identified enemy of God's people. If we look at the garden, Satan brought sin and death into the earth by deceiving Eve and Adam joining in. Uh, Abel was obeying God and offering the sacrifices that God requested. Cain let the Satan enter him and he killed his brother. That's there's something prophetic about the end of time in that as well. The Egyptians enslaved Israel and tortured and enslaved them and killed the male babies. Later, in the northern kingdom of Israel, the Assyrians sacked Samaria and dispersed the 10 northern tribes around the known world at that time. Centuries later, the Babylonians sacked Jerusalem and took captives. Then, in the time of the Persians, Haman the Persian set a time for all the Jews to be killed. He wanted to destroy everyone. As we all know this story from the book of Esther, um, the king allowed the Jews to defend themselves, and they did. Then the Greeks got into it. Antiochus IV is a Greek, tried to destroy Torah keeping and the identity of the Jewish people, and made war against the Jews. We move down to the Romans, and Titus and the Roman legion destroys Jerusalem, tears apart the temple, stone from stone, and murders millions of people and drags the rest of the Jews that lived off into a diaspora that lasted until 1948. Um, then, in pagan Rome, the Christians were martyred. So the problem was for the devil, he wasn't able to keep the church from growing. And I'm going to use the church in Israel synonymously. Okay. So he wasn't able to keep God's people from growing because God's people resisted him. God's people saw it as an attack from the outside and chose to stand their ground, like Jesus and the apostles and the godly men and women before them. So at that point, Satan changed his changed his strategy. He decided, huh, if I can't beat them from the outside, I'll seduce them. I'll bring them into a church where they think that they're worshiping God, but they're really going to be worshiping me. So he took the Emperor Constantine, who had a vision in 312 that if you put the sign of the cross on your shields, you would win. He had a mighty victory. So he decided to legalize Christianity. Remember, up until that point, Christians were being killed and martyred. So he legalized Christianity. He restored the confiscated church property. So at that time, each of the cities had churches, and so he restored that property, and he ended state-sponsored persecution of Christians. So Satan was unable to destroy God's people over several thousand years. So he hijacked the true Church of God by forming the Holy Roman Catholic Universal Church. For those of us who don't remember, the word Catholic is synonymous with the term universal. So he's changed his strategy. And then we see Constantine Christianized the empire in 312. Then he decreed a Sunday law in 321 AD to honor his god, the pagan Sol Invictus. So he didn't create the Sunday law for rest for God's purposes. He did it because he was a pagan who worshiped the sun god Sol Invictus. So that for everybody who thinks that Sunday rest and Sunday worship was something that the Christians practiced in the first couple of centuries, nuh-uh. This got introduced by the Romans. Later, about 200 years later, um, the emperor Vigilius, with military backing, Vigilius was installed as the bishop of Rome by the emperor Justinian. During Constantine's time, he moved the throne of the Roman Empire to Istanbul, renamed it Constantinople, and you needed somebody in charge to lead the Western Roman Empire. And so he named a pope, the bishop, to basically be the emperor of the Western Roman Empire and the head of the church. So papal Rome then, for the next 1260 years, chased true Christians, tortured them, killed them, tortured heretics on the rack, um, killed people who tried to translate the Bible, and chased around and killed and murdered by the hundreds of thousands Sabbath keepers. That was the Roman Church during the time of the 1260 years. At some point, actually, in 1798, Napoleon, then the Emperor of France, decided he was tired of the Pope deciding who of reigning over the kings of the known world at that time. He just sent his army down, grabbed Pope Pius the fourth, I think I typed that wrong, in 1798, and this was the deadly wound he brought to Rome. About that same time, a little country was coming up in in across the pond and signing the Declaration in 1776. So Satan achieves with deception what he could not achieve with force. He could not kill off God's true church. So he created a counterfeit Christian kingdom that he could use to seduce God's people away from God. So now we're gonna move it to a real high, sort of 30,000 foot view. If we take a look at the left chart, from Eden to Constantine's conversion in 312, Satan was attacking people from the outside. Between Constantine's conversion in 312, Satan moved his attacks to the inside. He created a church. He seduced people into it. He killed people who wouldn't go along with it. And he was the Pope was the dominant power of the known world at that time. And so all of those things that I just read to you, the prophecies that happened during that time, all of that is in the past. So now, what we come to in 1798 is by the end of the 1700s, going into the 1800s, the 19th century, on God's prophetic timeline, here's about where we were in Daniel and Revelation. In Daniel 2, where we have the metal man, at this point in the early 1800s, we're in history is in the toes of clay and iron. In Daniel 7, history is in the time of the little horn. In Daniel 8, at this time, it's still the time of the little horn. Um, this also coincides, and I'm not going to explain this here, but I'll just say that the prophecies of the the seven churches, the seven seals, and the seven trumpets are not consecutive. They actually run parallel to each other, and they tell the story of the progress and the formation of God's church over time. And at this point, we were in the early 1800s. We were in the sixth church, in the sixth seal, and in the sixth trumpet. We were also at the end of Revelation 13:10. Okay, 13:10. We haven't yet we haven't yet got to Revelation 13:11 and forward. So if we take a look at this chart, I've just taken the same on the left, it's the same, but on the right, we're talking about future events. And so I'm going to take little features. We're not going to read through all of Revelation 13 through 17, but what we have coming up now that we're going to need to be discussing is another beast coming out of the earth. It's going to have two horns like a lamb, but it's going to speak like a dragon. It's going to exercise all authority of the first beast and it's going to cause worship. It's going to have a deadly wound that's going to be healed. Now, we already learned what the deadly wound was. The deadly wound was um, Napoleon grabbing Pope Pius IV. We're also going to learn that someone's going to be performing great signs, bringing fire from heaven, going to deceive the whole earth, tell them to make an image to the beast. The image is going to speak, causing those who refuse to obey to be killed, and no one will be able to buy or sell unless they have the mark of the beast. And this brings up an important point, and that is how people interpreting the scriptures and and prophecy, how they're going to deal with uh, images, and is it going to be literal or are they going to be more figurative? And Christian sects and denominations, affiliations tend to separate themselves by how much of the Bible they see as being um, spiritual slash figurative and how much they see as being literal. We're gonna deal with that a little bit ourselves. So let me leave this for a second. Hold on. Thank you for your patience. I had to let Sophie out. Okay. Uh, so what we're going to do, this is a really important. This is a part of the talk that I had to really think about because the as we saw in the last slide, all of Revelation 11 is all of Revelation 13, 11 through 17 is in the future for us. And so, how do we observe those things? How do we deal with those things that are in the future? And I think we have a few rules here. One, the prophecy is going to be clarified as it unfolds. Prophecy becomes more clear as events approach fulfillment, not centuries in advance. Remember Daniel 4, Daniel was told to seal up the book. And in Matthew 16:3, until the end times, I believe that we are in the end times and the book has been unsealed. In Matthew 16:3, Jesus is talking about the signs of the times. We are to look at the signs of the times and interpret them because historicism is going to require uh, understanding Revelation as events unfold through history, so that the later portions are going to have to be interpreted while history is unfolding. That is, we're going to be responsible to recognize the events unfolding. So Revelation 13 describes public observable actions. The second beast is political, religious, and economic, and it makes real world observations necessary and important for us. Remember, we've already looked about the words about understanding, but it tells us that here is wisdom. And that demands us to analyze and to not be passively waiting for things to overtake us. The past fulfillments were identified in real time. The reformers and the historicists recognize prophetic fulfillments before and during their completion. That is, they knew they were living in the time of the Antichrist. They didn't understand what the deadly wound was going to be. They couldn't. It didn't become clear until Napoleon went and grabbed Pope Pius IV. But they knew they were living in that time. And also Revelation 13 is a process. It's not a moment. There's going to be an emergence, an influence, there's going to be deception, there's going to be enforcement, there's going to be penalty. It's all going to unfold progressively, and we're going to have to notice the trends as they develop. And we're going to be morally accountable to recognize these things because these systems are going to be coercive. They're going to be forcing us to do things. We need to recognize them before the trap closes on us and we have no choice. Also, as we do, it says informed projection is not date setting. We are not setting dates. We're not guessing the times. What we're doing is we're watching for trajectories for things that might be happening and what those things might mean. And if we refuse to watch, uh, if we refuse to watch those times, we're being ignorant and we're being willfully blind. We have to examine the current and the near-term developments, and doing so is not speculation, but it's the faithful application of the prophetic method that revelation itself requires. So now, everything up till now has been sort of like a 30,000-foot view. We've been talking about the trends. We've been talking about how the uh, the big things were happening. Now we're going to start getting into the weeds. But I wanted to set the table first. I wanted to say, here's where we're going, and here's where we're going to try to understand. Um, so when I start giving details and we start getting very detailed, we'll know why. So we're going to build our case from the scriptures and history for our view of how we have identified the events and the characters of Daniel and Revelation. These classes will provide scriptural support and historical references for review so that when the classes are over, anyone can refer back to see why we identified each character. I remember talking to people after the classes last year, and we did a detailed deep dive into all of Daniel 2, Daniel 7, Revelation 12, Revelation 13, and Revelation 17. And people were still wondering who the beast was. Uh, you can look back now and you're going to have these notes. I can send out the notes from last year so you have them so you can know, okay, what did that guy say? Oh, that's right. Let's go take a look at this. We're going to start building the prophetic chain in Daniel, going to explain what that is, and we're going to identify the little horn of Daniel. Then we're going to overlay the prophetic chain of Daniel on top of the prophetic chain of Revelation and clearly identify who the beast from the sea is of Revelation 13. Then we will use past, current, and near-term developments to describe who and what we believe are the second beast, the image of the beast, the mark, the false prophet, and the woman riding the beast of Revelation through the end of the book. Okay, I've used the term historicism, and I'm going to try to explain a little bit what that is. It's a whole Bible approach. The Bible is the first witness. Obviously, it is inerrant. It is true both in figurative way and in absolute um, uh, um, real substantive witness. But we also are going to use world history and current events as a second supporting witness. We would have no idea what the wound to the beast was if we didn't understand that there was a 1260-year time period between when the Pope was crowned, basically the Pope of and Emperor of Europe in 538, and then the Pope was dethroned in 1798. That's a very important part of history for us to understand. We're not guessing. This is not going to be play pin the tail on the Antichrist. And this is one of the things that historicists, people who use a historical method or a historical flow method have going for them is we're looking at the past and what has happened. One of the things that futurists do, and everyone on this call has heard different prophetic teachers or prophets calling out who they think the Antichrist might be. I'm old enough to remember when people were saying, well, the Antichrist, Henry Kissinger might be the Antichrist. And then Saddam Hussein might be the Antichrist. Literally, people were saying this. Or Assad might be the Antichrist. And as as people were dethroned and died and became clear they weren't going to move it, they just move it. Well, I'm sure that many of you remember that one of our presidents was identified by many people as being potentially the Antichrist. Uh, and so we're not going to play that game. We're going to look at the prophets in the context of history and rightly identify who the beast from the sea is, who the what the image of the beast is, the mark, the beast from land, the false prophet, and the woman riding the beast. I have a few hints. The metals and the beasts represent kingdoms, not individuals. The little, excuse me, the little horn of Daniel, the beast of Revelation, and the Antichrist are the same kingdom. So anybody who says the Antichrist is going to come up and he's going to be some bad guy, he's going to do all this, they're missing the point that those are kingdoms, kings and kingdoms. The little horn was has been operative for 1260 years. That's not just one person. And the beast from the sea, we'll see next week, um, is the conglomeration of the beasts of Daniel and the metal man of Daniel. We talked about this briefly last week, but there's no break between the 69th and the 70th week of Daniel. God's people will go through the mark of the beast and will experience the last seven bowl plagues. That is, as we described last week, we don't believe that the pre-tribulation theology is biblical. Okay, how do we understand the end time prophecy? Daniel and Revelation are very closely linked. You can't understand Revelation without understanding Daniel. Anybody who thinks they can teach Revelation and don't have a thorough understanding of Daniel are out in the weeds. And they're told in cycles, with successive cycles, retelling and expanding. We are not going to go through those chapters this time. A year ago, I went through those chapters, but you'll see in Daniel chapter 2 and in Daniel chapter 7 that, in Daniel chapter 2, Nebuchadnezzar has a dream. He describes it. Daniel interprets the dream. Then Daniel comes back and said, I had questions. And then Daniel goes back and tells it again. Same thing with Daniel chapter 7. The parts of the story keep being retold in slightly different ways, and sometimes it adds new information. And Daniel chapter 7 added new information to Daniel chapter 2. And Daniel chapter 8 added more information. We're going to talk about that a little bit today. And Revelation adds more information. So the prophetic chain is lengthening and it's getting new uh, links as more information comes out. So the whole purpose of the prophetic chain method is to be able to identify the beast and the little horn and all the other entities that we're going to learn about. So who is the beast? We will be able to tell who the beast is. The prophetic chain is going to allow us to do that. What we're going to find is that we're going to overlay Daniel 2, Daniel 7, Daniel 8, Revelation 12, 13, and 17, and the identity of the beast is going to be obvious. And so when I say overlay, you'll see we've got charts to show that. So let's review Daniel 2 briefly. Nebuchadnezzar has a dream in the second year of his reign over Babylon. He dreams of a great metal statue. He has a head of gold, which is Babylon. The second metal is a chest and arms of silver, which symbolizes Medo-Persia. The third metal is bronze. The waist and thighs of the statue are bronze, symbolizing Greece. The fourth is the legs of iron, which is pagan Rome. And the fifth kingdom is the feet and toes, partly of iron and partly of clay. It's identified as papal Rome. So the legs of iron are pagan Rome. The feet and toes, part of iron, part clay, is papal Rome. This statue is destroyed by a rock not cut with hands. That's in the future still. That's Jesus' second coming. And the rock is going to become a mountain that fills the whole earth. It's when the kingdom of God is established on earth permanently. Daniel chapter 7, a parallel prophecy. This happens in the first year of Belshazzar, and he sees four beasts from the sea. The first beast is a lion with wings, again symbolizing Babylon. The walls of ancient Babylon, when they were dug up, had winged lions on them. That's just amazing. So that was their own symbol. That was Babylon's symbol for itself. The second one is a bear raised on one side with three ribs in its mouth, talking about Medo-Persia, and the three ribs are the countries that they finally overcame to become the emperors of the world. The third is the leopard with four wings and four heads, which is symbolizing Greece. Notice that this this beast, the leopard beast, which is um, symbolizing Greece, starts with four wings and four heads. But we know that we're going to learn that the prophecy is going to back up and give us one, because we know that in history, um, Alexander the Great was actually preceded the four. And the fifth beast is a little horn that arises and destroys three of the 10 horns and becomes papal Rome. We also get our first time prophecy. The little horn rules for time, times, and a dividing of time. That is 3.5 years, 42 months, 1,260 days. We also are going to show the scripture that shows that the day for the year principle, which is key to interpreting these. I'm going to say later that the 3.5 years are 3.5 um, uh, years of 3.5 years of years, 42 months. None of those prophecies are something other than weeks of years. Daniel 8. So now the first two visions happened while Babylon was still in charge. Remember, Daniel survives to when Medo-Persian Empire takes over. So this is Daniel has the vision of Daniel chapter 8 right at the end of the time of Babylon. So he starts his vision with the Medo-Persian Empire. That is the ram with two long horns that was taking over the world at that point. That's the second kingdom, the second beast. The goat with a single large horn, Alexander the Great, overtakes Medo-Persia, the third. So now we've got a new um entity, right? In Daniel 8, they add the character of Alexander the Great. He dies as a young man, and then his kingdom is taken over and is eventually divided into four kings. So Greece is divided into the four. And then the little horn grows from one of the four and becomes the fifth kingdom. So I keep pointing out the the fifth kingdom for a reason. And so let's keep on going. I'll say that the Catholic Church wants to emphasize four kingdoms. The Catholic Church and futurists want there to be four kingdoms, and it ends with Rome when Rome goes down, and they want to limit the prophetic beasts, the prophetic kingdoms to just four. And we'll go on to explain why I think five is the right number. So, Daniel 2, Nebuchadnezzar has the dream of the metal man. A stone not cut by hands that smote the image became a great mountain and filled the earth. Daniel 7, Daniel's dreams and visions of the beast from the sea, the 10 horns, the little horn, the Ancient of Days, the Son of Man. Notice that the little horn is introduced in Daniel 7. We didn't have the little horn in Daniel 2. In Daniel 8, we have the vision of the ram, the goat, the little horn, God's judgment, his kingdom established. We have a 2300-day prophecy. And in Daniel 70, we have the 70-week prophecy, which is cut off the 2300-day prophecy. And we're given a starting date for the 70-week prophecy and the 2300-day prophecy. So what we see is in each successive recitation of the events, each layer gives more information. So let's just do this in a little bit more detail. Babylon, the head of gold and the winged lion, um, goes from 606 to 539 BC. We know these dates. These dates are in history. Medo-Persia, chest of arms of silver and the bear from 539 down to 331. Note, you remember these are getting smaller because we're in BC or before the Common Era, traveling toward year zero, the birth of Christ. Greece, the belly and thighs of bronze and the four-headed leopard from 331 to 168 BC. Remember, we have Alexander the Great, who rules from 331 to 323 BC, and then Greece is divided into four kingdoms: Macedonia, Egypt, Greece, and Pergamum. The Rome, the religion, the pagan, the pagan parts of Rome is what is from Pergamum is what grows into Rome. Then we have the pagan Roman Empire. They take over. Constantine moves the throne of Caesar to Byzantium in 330 because the barbarians are taking over. The barbarians take over Rome, and Rome essentially falls and is divided into 10 barbarian tribes. So the feet and the toes mixed with iron become 10. Um, what's going to happen is it says Romulus Augustulus, the last Roman emperor, was deposed from the throne of the Western Empire in 476. 10 tribes, and we're going to talk about the two different names, but the Alemanni, the Burgundian, the Franks, the Lombards, the Saxons, the Suevi, the Visigoths, the Heruli, and the Vandals, and the Ostrogoths are the ten barbarian tribes that take over. Now, the Alemanni are the Germans. The Burgundians, you've heard of Burgundy wine, are the Swiss. The Franks are the French. The Lombards are the Italians. The Saxons are the English. The Suevi are the Portuguese, and the Visigoths are the Spanish. Those are the seven tribes, those are the seven countries of Europe still today. It turns out that the Heruli, the Vandals, and the Ostrogoths were overtaken. The Little Horn has his armies of the other groups destroy the three barbarian tribes of the Heruli, the Vandals, and the Ostrogoths. Folks, history tells us how the Little Horn rose to power. The Little Horn, which was led by uh, the Pope in Rome, um, oversaw those tribes being taken out. Interestingly enough, he, the Bishop of Rome at that time, decided to take those out because they were non-Trinitarian. And interesting that he was looking for a pure Trinitarian viewpoint. The Heruli, the Vandals, and the Ostrogoths believed that Jesus was created, that he wasn't equal with God. So, number five, the little horn ascends to religious and civil power and reigns for 1260 years. The Emperor Justinian, as we talked about in 538, names Vigilius, the Bishop of Rome, as that all affairs touching the church shall be referred to the Pope, the head of all bishops and the true and effective corrector of heretics. In 1798, Napoleon removes Pope Pius IV, another typo, and has him taken to captive France, where he dies a year later. Why do I keep talking about the little horn is the fifth kingdom? Let's go to Daniel 7:23, and we hear, thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon the earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down, break it to pieces. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise. Okay, that's pagan Rome, right? It was diverse. It was it was strong. It devoured the whole earth. It tread it down. It broke it to pieces. Then it fell, and we have the 10 horns coming out of that kingdom. They are the 10 kings. And then in the middle of verse 24, it says, and another shall arise after them. That another is another kingdom, i.e., the little horn, shall arise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first. He shall subdue three kings. We just covered that. He shall speak great words against the Most High. He shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. And they, that is, the saints, shall be given into his hand until a time, times, and a dividing of time, the 1260 years. But the judgment shall sit, God's judgment, and they shall take away his dominion to consume and destroy it until the end. Okay, we have these markers here. There has been no uh, world power that spoke words against the Most High, like the Catholic Church, that has torn down the saints of the Most High, like the Catholic Church historically, or to change times and laws. The Catholic Church has had the nerve to change dates and to change the law, um, to change the Sabbath from the seventh day Sabbath to the first day Sabbath, um, and to do other things. So judgment shall sit. That's the stone that comes down from not cut with hands, and they shall take away his dominion to consume and destroy it to the end. That's when God judges the earth. So the feet of toes of clay mixed with iron of Daniel 2, the little horn of Daniel 7 and 8, the sea beast of Revelation 13, the scarlet beast of Revelation 17, all refer to the fifth kingdom that reigned for 1260 years, was wounded and will be restored by the beast from the earth. I'm going to keep on sort of beating that in. So, what are the characteristics of the little horn according to Daniel 7? He starts as a little horn, smaller than the other horns. The papacy, the bishop of Rome had no power. He was he the and the Catholic Church today itself doesn't have a standing army that can do anything. It recruits other people to do its dirty work. It rises after the 10. Actually, that's a lot like a a Jewish nation at the time of Jesus that had the Romans um, crucify Jesus. So the little horn rises after the 10 in the midst of the 10. He's more stout than his fellows. He's diverse from the first. The little horn is definitely different because he's combining religious power and civil power. He speaks blasphemies. He persecutes God's faithful people, the saints. He thinks it can change God's law. He thinks he can. Obviously, he can't change what was written in stone by the finger of God, but he thinks he can, and he tries to. He shall rule for a time, time and half a time, 3.5 years, and he will set up a power will last until it is destroyed before God sets up his kingdom. That power, the power of papal Rome, is existing until the end of time. Okay, there's a little bit of controversy about Antiochus Epiphanes, however you say his name. Don't crucify me if I don't say it the way you like it. Um, Antiochus does not, Antiochus, who comes up during the Greek time, right? He is the part of the Greek kingdom before Rome. So Antiochus does not arise after the 10, like the little horn does. He's not more stout than his fellows. He's actually under the Romans. He's not diverse from the first. He's the same kind of principality operating at that time. He does not uproot three kingdoms. He does not, well, he does not think he can change the law of God. He tries to force the Jewish people to abandon Torah, but he doesn't rename the laws of God. And he doesn't rule for 1260 years, a time, time, and half a time. And he does not last until just before God sets up his kingdom. And it's not logical that the same book uses the same name for two different kingdoms. It's not logical that Daniel, who wrote about the little horn in chapter 7, then goes on to write about the little horn in chapter 8 that happens hundreds of years before the little horn of chapter 7. That's not logical. So the links in the prophetic chain. The links are Babylon, the head and statue made of pure gold, Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome divided, the little horn, the stone cut without hands, and the stone that becomes a mountain and fills the earth. The prophetic chain has those countries, and it's important. Rome, in one form or another, extends from the time of Greece to the end of time. So I promised overlaying some stuff. So here's the overlay. So if you take a look at um, the different uh, entities there, you see on the far left Daniel 2, Daniel 7, and Daniel 8. Daniel 2 goes across to the right, and we see the head of gold, the chest of silver, the thighs of brass, the legs of iron, then the feet of clay, of iron and clay, and the 10 toes, the rock not cut out of by hands, and the mountain that grows. Each of those overlay, so you just say that we can see on the bottom that we have the time periods that we showed in the earlier slides. So then we have in Daniel 7, we have the lion. Under the head of gold, we have the chest of silver that aligns with the bear. We have the leopard and the four heads, which aligns with the thighs of brass. We have the legs of iron that aligns with the beast. And then we have in the little horn that uproots three out of the 10 kingdoms for a time, time, and half a time. The Ancient of Days sits. That's the same thing as the rock not cut with hands. That's judgment. So when the Ancient of Days comes in his throne on fiery wheels, he's sitting down to judge, and then he will establish his kingdom. Daniel 8. Daniel 8 does not cover the head of gold or the lion because it's at the end of that time period. It starts with the ram with two horns, which is aligned with the bear and the chest of silver, goes to the goat with four horns, which aligns with the leopard and the thighs of brass. It talks about the little horn, and then it talks about the little horn growing great. It's when it grows great that it is in the 1260 years. And then the little horn is destroyed without hands. Notice also now there is jagged lines, and I'm indicating that to the left of the jagged lines is past. All of those things have already happened. On the right side is future. The Lord has not come back, right? The Lord has not sit in judgment. So that is in our future. So if we were to summarize Daniel in the prophetic chain, we have five beasts, that is, kingdoms, that are presented as following each other from Daniel's time of writing to the end of time. We have the fifth kingdom, which is papal Rome, is described as lasting until it is judged, i.e., destroyed by a stone cut without hands. That stone cut without hands is God's future judgment that Jesus brings with his second coming. The stone becomes the mountain and fills the earth, God's kingdom on earth. And so here we have a picture of the links in the chain. When we go to the book of Revelation, we're going to add another link. We're going to add uh, the beast from the earth. The little horn link is going to be the beast from the sea. I think that is the end of my slides for this presentation. So what we will do is, let's see, figure out how to look at the chat. I want to be able to go over these questions, um, but I don't want to expose people's faces. So let's see what the chat has here. See if I can navigate this. Okay, just a minute here. Oh, I assume everybody should be able to see this. Um, Somebody send something in the chat if you can't see it. Let's see, I'm going to jump to the last. Um, Here we go. So if we I'll go back up. So um the chat, Constantinople, uh let's see here. That's from last week. Just a minute here. I gotta go down. Okay, this week. Constantinople was called Byzantium before Constantine changed it. Today it's called Istanbul. It was also referred to as Nova Roma or the New Rome. Um, uh, Thank you. Um, that's from Lindsay. Let's see. The little horn is pointing out the little horn does not have ears. It does not listen to God. In the um, in the the description of the little horn. It talks about a mouth speaking great things, but it does not mention ears. And so the pictures you see of it in many things where they show the little horn, it shows ears, but it doesn't have ears because it does not listen to God. And many prophecy teachers make Egypt to be the fifth. And also, when you're going to count um, the years, the 490 years or the 483 years, uh, you have to take a year out because there is no year zero. Revelation 13 has seven heads and 10 horns. Yep. Uh,
Can you take us off mute?
yes, it sounds like you're already off mute.
I
Um,
just hit it. I just didn't know if you could override it.
oh, yeah, we can have, I'm sure I can. Let me see if I can find that control. Yeah, we can go off mute now. We can ask questions. Let's see here. There's got to be a button for that. Breakout rooms, disable. Okay, maybe somebody knows where the control is to take everybody off mute. Well, you go ahead and unmute yourself. I think it sounds like Paul did. You can unmute yourself if you want to ask a question. Um, let's see here. There's a question. Uh, there's a question. Are you saying that 3.5 years equals 42 months equals 1,260 days, years? Yes, I am saying that. I'm saying that um, 3.5 years, if you take 360 days per year and you multiply that by 3.5 times, you get 1,260. And if you have 42 months and you say there are 30 days per month and you multiply that, you still get 1,260. So um, the the that is how we get to 1,260 days. So I see there's a question here about um, days versus years, and what we have here is uh, prophetic time. So the books of Daniel and Revelation are clearly prophecy books with huge amounts of symbolism. And so what we have is that the the day year principle is it used for all of this. Everybody, almost everybody who wants to tell the story of the futurist story of the last 7 years of tribulation has already conceded that um, the 490 days are 490 years, right? Everybody wants that. That's how the last week, the 7 days of the last week of the 70th week can be interpreted as being 7 years of tribulation. And so everybody wants to have the day for the year principle for that. But then they want to go back and they want to revert back to being literal for years being 360-day periods. And so what I'm saying is that once we pick a symbol and we pick an interpretive heuristic, it's not right for us to go back. It's not right for us to switch back and forth to say, well, this one is actually 3.5 years of time, and this one is 3.5 days. We can't switch back and forth like that. That's what I'm arguing. I'm arguing that our heuristic of uh, interpreting these symbolic times does not allow for that.
Hey, Randy, this is Paul.
Yes, Paul.
So I actually answered that, but some of the stuff you said, that's you can't do that. So you have to read the scripture. So in Daniel chapter 7, verse 25, it clearly says time, time, and half a time. That's 3.5 years. So you can't mix that. And then you go to the end of Daniel 12,
Okay.
verse 7, it says time, time, half time. And then in Revelation, you go to chapter, it's all over the place. So for this
So,
particular prophecy, there's no wiggle room. You can't jump. It is 3.5 years. However, that's the issue with that 1,260 years. And I asked you this, I can do the math, but I don't know where in scripture you can flip the switch to go from 1,260 days to 1,260 years. And that's
that
what everyone's asking.
okay, Paul. Thank you. I'll take that. Um, the the day year principle comes up in Ezekiel, and it comes up in I believe it's Numbers, where God tells the people of Israel that for each of the 40 days with the spies were in the land, they're going to be running around the desert for 40 years. And the same thing in Ezekiel is told that there will be uh, years for days. And so I'm using that. Like I said, everybody wants the 490, the 70 weeks to be years, but they don't want the three and a half, the time, and half a time to be. And I'm not here to argue that. I'm just gonna say that's the interpretation of that time period, and that is why we are sticking with that. And if you want to argue with me, if anybody wants to argue with me about it, you can find me at church, or you can text me or call me. I'm going to keep on moving on.
Yeah, but the problem is that
Paul,
is
Paul,
a
we're done. We're
key.
done with that. We're done with
Well,
that.
you
No.
can't be done with that. Sorry. You have to answer that question because if you don't, all these things fall apart. The 70-week prophecy actually goes all back to Jeremiah. And when the verses say that, then you follow it. And you
Okay,
can't,
Paul, you are not welcome to continue that discussion now. And
okay,
like I said, we've talked about this, and
it's not
so
just Randy, it's not just me that's talking about it.
that's
From these
fine.
questions, it's clearly confusing. So if you can't clear the confusion, we can't go forward. That's all I'm saying. And everybody knows that's the truth. Now, you don't want to hear from me? That's fine.
Um, we will, the issue of the day year principle is critical to this understanding of the scriptures. The idea that we're combining history with the prophecies to arrive at the conclusions we're arriving at is how this works. And so, um, oh, what's his name? One of the guys I was talking about in the history of dispensationalism very famously said, the New Testament, we don't need to interpret prophecy to know anything about about history. We can just use this. But so let's move on. Eric says he thinks that America will become very evil in the future. We're going to talk about America when we get to the new when we start talking about uh, interpreting the signs that are in our future. Um, yeah, uh, yeah. I don't. Robin, did the Edict of Constantine set up 11 churches, not just one? Well, the Edict of Constantine may have set up 11 churches. What we're saying is that the Holy Roman Church was set up in, what they say, 538, and so it's a couple hundred years after Constantine. So Constantine allowed the Christian churches to exist. He made it legal for them to list. Um, the 70-week prophecy of Daniel does not go back to Jeremiah. Jeremiah is clearly about 70 years only. Remember, Daniel looks at the writings, the prophecies of Jeremiah, and that was a 70-year prophecy. That is not to be mistaken with the prophecy that talks about 70 weeks. Okay. Okay. Anybody else? I've gone through what I think are the questions. Let me see if I got any texts. If there's room here, if somebody wants to open the discussion up, I see that we don't have any more. I don't have any texts. Is there anything that somebody wants to bring up
Can you go back to
other than what we
chart?
decided not to? Other than that subject, Paul, that will be for another time.
Can we go back to chart 33?
Uh, I think so. Is that in the previous talk?
That that was in your presentation.
Let's see here.
That was the one that had the sixth seal, the sixth trump, and a lot of other stuff where you mixed and matched, where you said some aren't or have already been fulfilled. And I actually, while you were talking about the beasts, plural, in Revelation 13, uh, yeah. So there's a problem. So the beast from the sea is the beast system or the Antichrist. The beast in chapter verse 11 is not the beast, it's the false prophet. And I don't know, I think we talked about this, but you
We're gonna
cannot mix the two.
we're gonna
You know,
cover. I don't mix the two. You notice that I don't have any slides for Revelation here. We're gonna cover that next. We're gonna cover that next week. And so I don't. What I say is by the end of uh, Revelation 13:10, we've come to the the mortal wound of the beast that says, it that section essentially concludes with
but that's the problem.
that. Well,
That's my
that section
point.
concludes with those who live by the sword die by the sword. Verse
Um,
13:11 starts with, and it starts with the beast from the land, and that is a very distinctly different character. And
that's the false prophet.
I talk about that just a minute. Yeah, the sea is humanity. And so Robin asks, is the sea humanity? Yes, it defines that back. It talks about the sea. The sea is humanity. So let's see here.
And so what I'm getting to is, Randy, is the problem. And I just thought of this. The prophecy, then, you're saying the 500, whatever, to the 1,260 year prophecy, that span, you're saying, is that aimed at the beast from the sea, or is that aimed at the beast from the earth?
Beast from the sea. That the
Well,
that
then
that
that
just
doesn't fit because the beast from the earth, you said, starts about 1798, which means you're connecting it to the United States of America, which I know about all that. So, but then that doesn't work because if the beast had the wound, a deadly wound that healed, it's the first beast from the sea, which is chapter 13, verse 1. It's not the second land beast, and that's a key.
you're
Whoever wrote
Paul,
sea,
you're
wait a
confusing.
minute. The sea is humanity, that's correct. It's the whole world, but the land beast is smaller. And that's why people think it was the United States, because it's a piece of humanity. So it's a smaller piece of real estate as opposed to the entire world. That's
So
important.
we're going to get into I'm we're going to we you're talking about something we haven't got to yet, and so I have support for what we're going to talk about, but the 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 conglomerate beast that comes out of the sea is the same the same entity as the little horn. It's the
The
one
little
that's
horn
going to
is part of it. Yes, the
the
beast
little
system.
horn, it is the beast system that comes out of the sea.
Yeah, and
It
that's
gets and
chapter.
the deadly wound is healed by the beast that comes out of the ground in verse 12. So we're going to get to that. We're not, it doesn't do any good for us to discuss this now because we haven't got to those verses. I haven't brought that up at all. Um, so let's see. There was a comment here. There are two beasts in Revelation 13. it appears that we are only dealing with the first beast being compared with Daniel 2, 7, and 8. And we are. Daniel 2, 7, and 8 do not introduce the second beast. We get as far as the little horn. That's as far as we get. We have to get to Daniel to learn about the beast from the land. And the time signature in Revelation 1 through 10 of a whatever that time signature is, gives us a clue that it's the same beast that we talk about in the book of Daniel. And those are that we're going to have a detailed discussion about that next week when we do the book of Revelation. Are there any questions? So now, rather than talking about these subjects, which are in the future of our conversation, are there any questions about the previous two classes, the class last week or the class this week? Is there anything I can do to clarify what we're doing? You can unmute yourself and talk, or you can send it in the chat.
Hey, Randy.
Yes.
So early on, there's something about 1776 and the founder signing the documents. What does that mean to you? Early on at the
Uh,
beginning of the culture.
you're jumping ahead, Eric. I
Oh,
think
okay.
I
Well, no,
think
that was
that
just like there was a photo of them with all the other photos early
He's
on.
yeah, yeah.
right. There was a chart with 1776.
That's for later on. Okay, okay.
That's a great question. And you know what? I questioned whether I'd put it in there, but thankfully you called me on that. That I was just basically making a sneak preview and about who the beast was coming out of the earth. That the beast out of the earth arises as the first beast, the beast from the sea, has its deadly wound. Anybody else? Oh, I see a chat question. There are two beasts in Revelation 13. It appears that we're only dealing with the first beast. Randy is right. We have to get through Daniel 2, 7, and 8 to get to the second beast of Revelation 13. Yeah, we the like we said, Daniel 2 talked about that Daniel 2 ended in the feet with the 10 horns. Daniel 7 gives us the little horn. So we go into, and then it talks about in 7 and 8 that the little horn subdues three kingdoms. That is new information, right? We're layering that information on. And so we're going to uh, have to be willing that we're layering on that new information. Let's see here.
Where did you get five kingdoms from?
Ah, uh,
Because what you did is you piggybacked off Rome. Rome is one, and at the end, they come 10. You already talked about the 10 barbarian tribes, but they took over Rome. So I don't think it's proper to say that's a fifth kingdom. It went from Rome to the two places in Constantine and in Rome, and then it actually became the Holy Roman Empire. And that's still, in my opinion, Rome. You
so
can't
I
break those
understand.
out.
I understand that, and that's a common viewpoint. And so that's not my viewpoint or what I would say the historicist viewpoint, because it says that I actually had a scripture for that here. Here's how I get a fifth kingdom. Daniel 7 talks about there's a fourth beast, the fourth kingdom, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, which is Rome. It shall devour the whole earth, shall tread down and break it to pieces. And 10 horns come out of this kingdom, the
But
10 kings
that's
that will arise. So that is the barbarians taking over Rome. So pagan Rome comes to an end when the emperor is dislodged. Then it says, another shall arise. That another we're saying is the fifth kingdom, and it becomes the little horn. That that one that arises is the fifth kingdom. And
okay.
so that's where I get it. I'm not just
Um,
pulling it out of my hat.
I completely disagree with that. It doesn't fit the
That's
prophecies, but that's your
that's
opinion.
okay. That's okay. We
It
can talk
doesn't
about that.
fit. It doesn't fit.
Okay. Well, when we go across, we have it is very interesting that the the futurist view does not want there to be a fifth kingdom. The futurists want pagan Rome that is overthrown by the barbarians to be the end of Rome. Okay. And so they don't want there to be a fifth kingdom because the futurists and the the Holy Roman Empire does not want us to consider that the papacy between 538 and 1798 is in that line. The Catholics, I don't know if this is something that everyone knows, but in the Catholic interpretation of this, the Catholic interpretation of this is Jesus's first coming is the stone. Okay. Jesus brings an end, eventually brings an end to pagan Rome, and the Catholic Church is the rock that becomes the mountain and fills the whole earth. So post-millennialists and the Catholic Church believe that that rock is already growing, and that rock is the Catholic Church. So they don't want there to be a fifth kingdom, right? They want to be them. So we got more chat. Let's go to this. So there's a question.
So
Will we discuss the tent on the mount, the red heifer sacrifice has already occurred? I'm not planning on addressing that. And that was something that would conceivably come up near the end. And so we may touch on that in maybe the last class, but that's not a part of my plans here. And the fulfillment, it's pointed out that the fulfillment of prophecy is incremental. Rome is represented by two legs and 2 feet. The chest has two arms, right? One leg is pagan, the other one is
wait,
wholly
it's
pagan.
not the chest.
So
That's not the chest. Rome
yeah,
is
we're
not the
talking about
chest.
yeah,
The
we're
Rome is the legs, the iron legs that you got at the bottom, and
uh-huh.
and the feet, the 10 toes on the feet. So this whoever wrote that is incorrect. The chest, not to go back, is either Greece or one of the other ones, but
Okay,
it's
it's
not Rome.
Medo-Persia. It's
Thank you.
Medo-Persia. There's two arms and
Right.
two arms,
Thank you. You're right,
Medo-Persia.
Charles.
It's two arms, Medo-Persia. Stop
Yeah,
arguing so much.
I'm not. Wait a minute. I'm not arguing. I'm correcting it. The chest
And
is
your and
not
your in,
Rome.
and your correction is incorrect.
The chest is not Rome. I'm agreeing with you, Charles.
Well, are there any other questions? Because we want to be respectful of people's time. And so, if there aren't any other questions, we could wrap things up. And I can tell that there's a lot of this material may have been very new, and the first time you're dealing with it, and that's okay. Um, part of the whole point of this, um, part of the whole point of this is that we are confronting what I think is a more correct version. There's a question. I'm not a futurist. I fall into the camp of what's called historicist or historicism. That group is also part of a historical flow that the prophecies um, unwind with time as time progresses. So I will take this opportunity to go back. Let's see here. I think it's back. Just a minute here. So this this viewpoint says that there is history that has transpired. The prophecies of Daniel 2, 7, and 8 have elapsed until the time of the little horn. At that, so basically, by the end of the 1700s, we're in the time of the little horn, and um, we're also at the time of the wound of the beast in Revelation chapter 10. And so what we're saying is that the land beast starts to come up, but time is going to pass for the land beast to be able to have the strength to fulfill the prophecies. So time is going to pass. I would argue, and I will argue over the ongoing weeks, that the land beast is that the land beast is here, and that the land beast is here, and that it is getting very strong, and we are rapidly approaching the time that the the image of the beast will be fully formed, and the ability to cause people to worship the beast will be here, and we're going to talk about that in the upcoming weeks.
Um, Randy and everybody, can I ask a question? I want somebody to help me with this because I thought of this a long time ago. Uh, the land beast, it says it has two horns like a lamb. Did anyone think that might be a buffalo? Because it's not a lamb.
I do. I think it's a
Okay.
buffalo.
Yeah, I do too.
And
That's why I agree with you that it's probably
yeah,
the USA. There's no
yeah,
buffalo anywhere but in the USA. It's insane,
yeah.
isn't it?
And the buffaloes are clean. Buffaloes, two horns can symbolize the kingdom of God and the kingdom of this world. Can symbolize a um, a church without a pope and a civil authority without a king. It can symbolize republicanism, which is a form of government that is not based on a king, and republicanism and Protestantism is a church without a pope. So all of those things are there, but that's in the future, right? That's in Revelation. I wanted to get us to the point that we could appreciate the book of Daniel and how all those things line up. And to me, it's beautiful how it lines up. It is just gorgeous. That is a gorgeous chart. And the fact that all those things line up, that the time periods line up, that the 1260 years is actually bookended by the designation of the Pope and by the taking down of the Pope. That's incredible. That's history providing context to prophecy. Okay, thank you, everybody. I hope that this was beneficial. Like I said in the earlier part of the talk, we are going to need to begin making educated inferences about events that are taking place right now, and and we will be doing that. Last comments. Thank you. Uh, so is it apparently there are bison in Europe. They're much lighter and they don't have the beard. So goodbye, everybody. I will stop the recording so no faces show up. Yes.